Pennsylvania County Board Finance Committee, Tuesday, February 18th. It is now 3:16. I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please, Ms. Clerk. Madam
Yes,
Clerk.
sir. Mr. Dudley?
Present.
Mr. Bowman?
Here.
Mr. Height?
Here.
Mr. Tucker?
Here. Let's see, are there any items to be added to the agenda?
No, sir. I don't have anything. Thank you.
Hearing no items to be added to the agenda, I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you so much. It has been moved and met with second that we approve this agenda. Any discussion? If not, cast your votes. I have nothing come up.
Showing on your, okay. Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
It passed. I don't know why it's not popping up.
Okay. Motion passes. For the citizens' convenience, all work session and committee meetings are now being recorded and can be viewed on the county's Facebook and the same YouTube location as the Board of Supervisors business meetings. Please remember that the board's work session is designed for internal board and county staff communication, discussion, and work. It is not a question and answer session with the audience. Accordingly, during the work session, no questions or comments from the audience will be entertained. Respectfully, any outbursts or disorderly conduct from the audience will not be tolerated and may result in the offending person's removal from the work session. As a reminder, all county citizens and all other appropriate parties as designated by the board's bylaws are permitted to make comments under the hearing of the citizens section of tonight's business meeting. Moving to 5A, capital improvements. Ms. Vanderhyde, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, board members. I'm glad to be before you all this afternoon. Basically, this afternoon's Finance Committee is to just give you all a recap of the items that you all requested during your budget forum at the end of last month and to show you where we are. So we're going to start with the capital improvements plan. I do not have a presentation, so I hope you'll be following along in your board packet. So the completed list, you have that for years 26 through 30. And we also have an itemized list of what is actually located in your 2026 budget request as it stands right now. So some of the things I'd like to review with you all are the items that we discussed about removing from our budget or from that capital improvements plan. The first item is the training center improvements. It was requested that we cover half of the cost of those improvements to the training center located in Danville. You all requested the MOA from Danville concerning the training center, so that has been attached for you all to review. And so that was split 50-50 with the volunteer agencies as well as the career public safety department. So we have removed that right now from the budget. That was $75,000 total. We also removed from the CIP the county recycling center. That was to be $100,000 in FY 2026 and $550,000 in 2027. And then the recreation, the school parks grounds improvements line item, which was for the joint use agreement, facilities agreement with the school system. They had requested 60 and we had put it back to 15. It was also requested that you all see a copy of that MOA. That also was attached for your review. And then the last item was the ladder truck. It was $500,000 and that was in each year, FY 2026 to FY 2029 at $500,000 per year. So those items have been removed from your CIP. What still remains in the CIP that you all wanted more information on was the pole pads, and that was $120,000. We attached that detailed project detail sheet so that you all could see exactly what they were requesting. And those were for the precincts to have those pole pads that are now out of date. The next item was the SCBA packs and accessories. That was $18,000, and we did receive information back from Mr. Key, and he is here today for specific questions if you all want to ask him questions about that item. And the second item for public safety career was on the ambulance. That's $435,000 for that ambulance, and you all wanted to see how that would be replaced, and you were given that information. And then public safety volunteers, we had a lengthy discussion about increasing the fire engine contribution by $100,000 per truck, and the increase in ambulance contribution of also $100,000 per truck. So those are the items we probably need to discuss. One thing that I would add in your review of this is I don't think at this time staff is recommending that you all approve anything with regards to CIP because we don't have confirmed revenue figures, and our estimated time of getting those revenues is March 1. So we're a little bit off of that. So for you all to approve something without really knowing what funds you have available for those items is probably not a very good idea, because you may need it for operations or for some other area that you find more important. So do you have specific questions or things that you, especially those items that are still there, that you wanted more information? Did you get the information that you needed? Do you still kind of want to let it lay and we can discuss it further at a future meeting of the Finance Committee?
Ms. Vanderhyde, can we have Mr. Key to approach the lectern, please? We have some questions for Mr. Key. Good evening, Mr. Key.
Yes, sir.
Afternoon, rather, and thank you for being here.
Yes, sir.
And, fire and rescue is always a hot-button topic. Tell us about the ambulance replacement. Well, let me back up, because this is one of the questions I asked during the budget forum. We continue to have on our CIP ladder trucks, ambulances, wanting an increase for the cost. I get the cost of fire trucks, I get the cost of ambulances, okay? But we just paid for a study, and no one was able to answer the question, have we done an evaluation of our equipment? Tell us what kind of condition it's in, what type of rotation we need to be on, that sort of thing, before we just get into a habit of just saying, it's my turn for an ambulance, it's my turn for a fire truck, and we're just appropriating money. So has any type of study like that been done?
Well, a couple of years back, they set up a system because of that for the fire side. The fire side has a rotation based on the last time they received funding. So that way, somebody don't get two shares before somebody else will get their first share.
Hang on one second. Thank you. That is actually for the money. I'm saying,
sir.
have we evaluated the actual equipment? That's
Not going
my,
out and do a study, but, I mean, most everybody has at least a 20-year apparatus that they're trying to replace.
okay. All right.
The way it was always set up with two of them receiving funding, you had 21 departments. So over basically an 11-year period, you would get funding to replace one of your apparatus.
Okay. One of the things that I wanted to dig into was, I understand, and trying to split this baby kind of like Solomon. I understand paid, I understand the volunteers, but right now it looks like the volunteers, in terms of those units, some of the smaller units are really being left out, and we're not propping them up as a county. This new ambulance that we're proposing, what location is it going to?
The new one that Public Safety is requested, that would go to Station 4. That's the new station added 640 Rescue.
Okay. And, well, I got that, I read that. The one, I guess, that's going to be taken away from 640, why is that not going to be maybe transferred to over in the Renan area?
There's no agency out in that area.
What is it down there next to Streets though?
Renan Volunteer Fire Department, it's fire department. They don't
Yeah,
have the
they're
rescue
fire
side.
only, they don't do
Yeah,
EMS.
they don't have the
They
rescue side.
don't do the rescue?
No, sir.
Actually, the ambulance we're talking about, the one at Station 640 right now, blew a head gasket last night, so it's out of service now.
Okay. All right, I was just trying to wrap my mind around that, but, you know, I wholeheartedly want to support fire and rescue, but I don't want to, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is I want to balance the scales between paid and also the volunteers, make sure that the volunteers are being taken care of, as far as, you know, equitable distribution of the actual equipment. Because we're sitting here trying to make decisions on all this high dollar equipment, but at the same time, you know, getting together as a unit and saying, okay, we're just going to create a rotation for where the funds are being distributed. I mean, I get it. I understand that process, but I don't think that that is acceptable to the residents of the county in terms of, you know, how we spend their money. It would probably, in my mind, make a little bit more sense that, you know, we take a deep dive, take a look at all of our equipment, you know, in terms of fire trucks, ambulances, and we understand the need versus, you know, it's just on paper the way we've always done it in terms of a rotation. Because we're going to have to get a little more frugal with our dollars. That's all I'm trying to convey. Mr. Ingram.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I totally agree. You know, we asked for the fire and rescue study to help guide us in a more contemporary way versus the 2015 study, which was out of date, as some people tend to hang their hat on. But Mr. Chairman made a lot of good comments here. And in addition to the equipment, I still have questions unanswered about manpower, about their turnover rate. You know, why are people leaving us and things such as that. And there was a couple of internal questions that I had that still yet hadn't been answered. So I would like to see us sit down and have an earnest conversation and try to find a happy balance between paid staff and volunteers, the equipment that is appropriated to each, and come up with some kind of community idea that would serve everybody. None of us want to see any community do without, but the questions, the even allegations that we all hear on a continual basis need to be addressed. And Mr. Jerome Adams, good man, came up from Cascade and shared his heart at the last fire and rescue meeting, and good points that were made, and we just need to take a look at that study, come together, and try to, I don't know that we'll be able to solve it, but get back on track with what needs to be done to make sure that the citizens are best served. And the numbers is what a lot of people are concerned about, and you know about the numbers. So, but I would like to see us take that study, take a look at it, extract what we're going to use and embrace, and disregard the rest, and incorporate, you know, what will work for us. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Public safety has not been on that rotation at all for ambulances for us since we were started, because what they had done, we had taken and bought 4 new ambulances for the county agencies, and we took their old ambulances in, and that's what we've been running since then. That's why we've got a 2004 and a 2007 ambulance that came from the volunteer side that are now serving us. So that's why I'm trying to put us on a 2-year rotation for replacing ambulances. I mean, as you see, I mean, everything we've got is at 100,000 miles, and our newest ambulances are the 2019 models. So those are getting it to where it's going to be replacement time here soon. Getting ambulances now is a 2 to 3 year process. Luckily, we was able to find the one we just purchased as a demo that another agency turned down. And that's how we was able to get that one so quickly.
One more thing, I'm sorry, and I told you about the meeting that we had last week, and the conversation of a ladder truck came up, and the department's representative was pretty adamant that we need a ladder truck out 58 West, primarily for the schools, the existing apartments, the new development that would be built, as well as a mega park. And so I just need to throw that back in. We might need to reconsider that.
Any other questions for Mr. Key? Mr. Key, thank you. I don't want you to think that we're beating up on you or picking on you, but, that's your department. You're the point man.
totally understand.
We certainly want to be able to get good insight and clarity. But in having said that, I want all the departments of the county, when you come and speak to the board, I want to make sure that you take some notes and that you take some action items and you get this stuff back to the board. We shouldn't have to kind of chase you down to get information. But I'd like to see some type of outlay of rotation. Want to see exactly all these vehicles. And I know when you say 2019 vehicle with 100,000 miles, well, really, there's a lot of our residents in the community that's driving vehicles with 150,000 miles on it. So, to them, it has to make sense to spend that kind of money. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if Mr. Key, I need to address this with him, but these CIP items on here that Ms. Vanderhyde identified, I've got a question about number 2, the training center MOA. Would that be Chris or Kim?
Okay.
All right. So my question, and I've reviewed the MOA, and the training facility here, has it been discussed with the city that we're looking to back out of this at this point? Okay. So y'all are familiar with the MOA, is that correct? All right, because in the original, I think there was some land that was jointly purchased for the one that the training facility is on right now. We're supposed to give notification to them that we are backing out of this, and we're also liable for any fees or whatever encumbered that we would have to pay that.
I would hope we wouldn't pull out of that agreement because it's only costing us a little bit of money each year.
I'm just saying, this was one that, and help me here because I forget things from meeting to meeting, but didn't we talk about pulling out of that?
We did, and basically, we were bringing that to you all because what we heard from the volunteer side is they didn't use it. But I've later heard that the volunteers have come back and said, well, we are using it. The people on the southern end use that training center. So, I think we were getting kind of mixed signals about, well, we don't want that, we want to do our own thing. And then all of a sudden, no, I think we should entertain staying. So I've heard mixed things.
We have to have it in order to be able to get our firefighters certified. They have to go through a burn building and go through the whole scenarios in order to get that. If we pull out at this point, we're not going to have anywhere to go. We'll have to pay somewhere to go.
I understand. So that's kind of my point here. Who are we listening to when we come and make these presentations? It makes it very difficult, especially for me. I'm not going to speak for the rest of the board. They're probably a lot smarter than I am when it comes to this. But when we're taking these mixed signals and trying to make decisions, it's not good. So we're only looking at $75,000 here, but again.
And that was just for an improvement to the building.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one time only. It was 150, 50% of it would be covered by the city of Danville, and the other 50% would be covered by us.
Okay.
So we did have a meeting with fire and rescue volunteers.
Okay.
And at that particular meeting, it was mentioned that maybe we wouldn't want to help with this improvement. It was never a question. You all brought up the idea, if they're not using it, maybe we need to review the MOA and make a decision about pulling out.
All right.
It was not their idea. I mean, they just basically said, well, we're really not using it. If everybody goes to that training center, then we don't have coverage in the county. But that's not really accurate because your southern end agencies are utilizing that.
Okay.
It would be beneficial to us to invest in a training facility in this county Really, with as big as this county is, we actually need two. But for what we put less than $10,000 a year in that training center. So this 75 is a special, we're trying to expand the training center that's there. So it's not like it's every year it's costing us $75,000.
No, I was just curious because I know that I heard this somewhere about, maybe we just back out. We just pull away from Danville and let them do their thing, we do ours. But this MOA covers both the city and the county. And there are, certain items in here that need to be looked at. So if that is in fact the case here, we need to figure out which way we're going with it. So whether it was the board that was discussing it or it was brought up.
Just a discussion.
Okay.
It was not,
Yeah.
definitely this is what we're doing. But
Okay.
we definitely weren't really sure if we wanted to invest that extra money for the improvements.
Okay.
To my
Good. Thank you,
colleague's
Mr. Chairman.
point, I think when we had our budget forum, I think we wanted some insight in terms of why this thing went from $10,000 to $75,000. There was no explanation for that, and you just cleared it up a little bit with a one-time only fee.
Yeah, what they're trying to do, there's a shelter there that's more like a staging area. They want to make that into a training classroom and be able to use that with offices and everything, so that way you go out there for the training, you can do it all at one spot. And then build another shelter adjacent to that on the side. That's what the proposal is. The city fire department has asked for $150,000 and asked for us to put in for $75,000.
I get
So
it.
it's not a 50-50 true split.
In your experience, estimation, how many of our agencies, departments actually travel to Danville and use this facility?
It's not a lot, but you've got to look at it from the training standpoint for new firefighters. To get these new firefighters, we're getting ready to start 2 new classes, firefighter 1 classes. And in order for them to be certified, they have to go to a burn building. I'm looking maybe 5 to 6 agencies a year, if that, because of the call volume, the fundraising. I mean, you got to ask Gretna to go all the way there, take all their stuff out of service, to be there for a 4 or 5 hour training. That's asking a lot for an agency to not cover their territory. For Ringgold, it's not that far of a drive, but for all your other agencies, it's a long ride to take your department out of service for that amount of time.
I get it. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
The departments that you said that don't utilize it, where do they go?
They do their own training in-house. I know like Climax and Gretna will use the old school. They'll do training in that. They're improvising in their own stations. But any of our training that has to go through the firefighter 1 or 2, they have to either go to that building or they'll have to go to Lynchburg.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Key.
Sir.
Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to comment.
Mr. Dalton? Yes, sir.
We definitely need that training center. I agree with that.
Yes, sir.
I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
I
we
don't
need-
think it'd be advisable for us to pull out at this point.
yeah, I mean, as Mr. Bowman said, we need to leave that, but I'm just saying the county needs its own
Yes, sir.
training center.
Yes, sir, I agree.
Yeah,
But when it was originally done, you had to have the county and the city together.
Right.
Because it was funded through not a federal grant, but a state grant to get it funded. And you have to say, we're going to train this many people a year in it.
Right.
We was one of the first in the state to receive it. So it's been there since 2000.
Does any of our people go to Lynchburg and get certified? They have a training center
I
there.
think the last class, the class we had at Blair's carried their people up there to.
Okay, I know
to do
they do
that.
it too.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Key. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Any other specific CIP items or items that you all had further questions about? Did what we supply for you all answer those questions?
In the interest of time, we'll move it to the finance committee.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, can you share with us the 5B financing options?
Yes, we went over this briefly and touched at it at a very high level. Hopefully, you do have that in front of you. So we do have some projects that will have to be financed this coming year. They are the CAD system replacement at $1,351,731, the radio system upgrade at $1.9 million. The need for that funding is July 1, 2025. The courthouse HVAC, and we are estimating that at 2.1. We don't have firm figures on that. Right now, it's uncertain as to when we would start that project, but it is definitely a true need. Property acquisition and renovation at $2 million, and broadband, the final payment of that is due at $4,159,300. Both of those are due July 1, 2025. So the total cost that we would be funding would be $11,511,031. I've shown on your sheet there two options that we could possibly use as financing. We have determined that the Virginia Resources Authority would be our best option as far as interest rate, because that is a pooled program. We would apply for those funds in May. It is a summer sale, so we would get those funds around the August timeframe. So our CAD replacement, this is option one, at the 1.3, the radio system at 1.9, the courthouse 2.1, property acquisition $2 million, all of those things that I mentioned above. They would all be financed, and we would use approximately $2 million from our project fund. If you'll remember, the project fund was set up when debt falls off to maintain the integrity of your debt service. We have a debt that's coming off that will give us $2 million that we could use for property or for renovations or for any kind of capital that we would see. So the amount we would finance in the summer of 2025 would be $9,511,031. So as I was thinking about these things, because we are uncertain about the certainty of the 2.1 courthouse HVAC and the property acquisition, we're not certain about the timing of that. Typically, when you go to the market, you have a project budget, you'd have a timeline, you'd have all of that information. We probably will not have that by the summer. So one of the items that we can do, if you will remember some time ago, back last February, we passed reimbursement resolutions where we could actually pay ourselves back if we were to borrow money for projects that we started after February 1 of 2024. So what I would like for you all to consider is that we could actually borrow the money for the Moses Building window replacement in HVAC. That's $1,541,000. We started that project July 1 of 2024, and it's still ongoing right now. We would borrow the money for the Paths Building. That purchase and renovation was $725,788. That was done October 31st, 2024. We used county funds for that. So if we borrow funds, we would replenish the funds that we first utilized for those projects, and those would be your funds that could help offset the cost of the purchase of property and renovations to a building, as well as the HVAC, and you wouldn't need a project timeline for those two items. You would use county funds for those. And then the other items we would borrow would be the 1.3 for the CAD, 1.9 for the radio system, and then our broadband final payment would be also considered in that financing. So we would end up financing about $100,000 more going this route, which I think would be fine because both the renovations and property acquisitions as well as the HVAC are just estimates. So, of course, you know, it could be more, it could be less. You would still utilize your $2 million project fund as we had discussed, and then we would have a bond reimbursement of $2,267,781. So that would be the money from Paths as well as the Moses Building renovations. So you would have total cash to use for those two projects that are uncertain of $4.2 million. I know it's sometimes confusing, but I'm trying to go kind of slow. Do you understand the concept of what we would be doing there?
Mr. Tucker?
Yes, sir, Mr. Bowman.
Just real quick. So, Kim, help me here in memory. The Moses Building window replacement, 1.5, the Paths Building, 725, that came out of this current budget, right?
Yes.
Is that out of our general fund?
Yes.
Is that out of general fund money?
Yes, we did use some project fund last year. It was about $697,000 that
Right.
we had that freed up from debt service payments we weren't making for '25, and we did utilize that toward that Moses building. But all of it is general fund,
Good.
no matter how you look at it.
Good, thank you.
Any questions, further questions?
Any other questions, Ms. Van Hyde? Ms. Van Hyde, based on, I guess, your wealth of experience, I'm going to ask you to kind of read the tea leaves. Where do you anticipate the rates going, and are we going to be in good shape here in July, say?
Yes, but the closer you get to the end of the year, our financial advisors are advising us to borrow sooner rather than later
Gotcha.
because of the debt ceiling situation that we have going on at the federal level. They're also considering eliminating tax-exempt borrowing. They've said that as well. So, of course, it's going to be more of a demand at the end of the year because people are scurrying to try to get their money borrowed. So she said if you could do it sooner rather than later, then you're not caught up in all of that. There's several things that we need to consider. And just remember that when we borrow these funds, even at a higher interest rate, if interest rates do come down, our financial advisors will let us know the opportune time to possibly refinance to maximize that.
Okay. Any additional questions, gentlemen? Everybody good? Thank you so much. Let's move to item 5. Are we on D? The actual tax rate?
Well, just so you know, we do have all those documents. If you all need them again from the budget forum, there is turnover rates that were sent to you all. If you need me to send that to you again, Mr. Ingram, I'll be glad to do that. Garrett worked on that at length, and so he's worked on that so that you all have that information. And please just reach out to me if it's anything else that you all have asked for that you didn't get. But with that being said, the last thing I think we talked about was setting the tax rate for the current year. And this is not currently on your night's meeting. I wanted to make sure you all were good with the resolution. It is setting your tax rate at the current 56 cents per $100. The only uncertainty on any of that would be your relief percentage, and we will need to know what the relief is that we are needing to give before we can set that percentage. And we don't have those figures right now. Our estimates, as we said, would be by March 1. So I've just left that open-ended as far as the percentage of tax relief, but the actual tax rate itself is set at 56 cents per $100, as well as your personal property. All of your other tax categories would be set the same way, M&T, machinery, merchants capital, that kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Van Hyde? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if this is the place to ask it, but she's the finance, so maybe she can help here. So the school board brought up the 1% sales tax they get, and so that money comes straight into finance. You hold on to it, you dole it out when they're ready for it, or when they ask for it. And maybe the attorney would have to be more read in on this, not only expect an answer right away, but of course, we want to try to fund the schools as much as we can. What's the possibility of increasing that from 1% to 2 or 3? I know it was done on a referendum, so I'm just asking the question. Not sure which way to go with that. Is there something, and maybe...
To my colleague, that 1% was passed, put on a referendum, and I don't believe that we can legislate from the DIOS in terms of raising that rate without, the public support and public buy-in. That would have to go before the public.
And she said General Assembly is who sets that.
Yep.
That's correct. We'd have to petition them to do that, but I'm just kind of tossing it out there as food for thought. It's 1%. It may be something we can look at for next year's General Assembly session. That's all I've got, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's see, 5D should be an action item. We need
Yes.
someone to entertain a motion to move this to the actual, this resolution to the, I think, the regular meeting this evening?
Yes.
Doesn't need to be in the work session. Let's move it straight to the meeting.
Question, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
what figure or in the budget are we looking at trying to do above the minimum for the schools?
What you've typically done in the past is 6% above the minimum that's required.
Right.
So what Ms. Worley shared with us today, I didn't have Senate and House when we shared that information with you all at the end of January, which I had said was 1.4, but if they get the governor's increase as well as House and Senate, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, our minimum with the 6% would be roughly 2.1 million.
I mean, are we in a rush to approve this resolution tonight for the tax rate? I know nobody wants to raise taxes, but I think we need to, I want to know what we're going to do to support our schools.
Mr. Height, with all due respect, I think without it sounding like a sense of urgency, the only unknown in terms of, getting this budget together is the revenue piece, if I understand you correctly. But if we actually set the tax rate, we can actually back the numbers, we can backfill that budget, and then we can look at expenses. I think last year, what did we give? Was it a little over $2 million above?
I can't remember the exact figure, but it was. I can't remember either.
But
I want
it
to
was,
say it was roughly 2.6 maybe.
yeah, we were close, Mr. Height. And, I kind of, if I understand you correctly, kind of understand where you want to go with this conversation. We again, I digress. We had an opportunity to set the budget at 59 cents per 100. Some of the colleagues wanted to play politics and some wanted to, and I get it. I really do. I really do. But at the same time, at this juncture, I don't think it would behoove us to raise taxes. We need to look at other ways of making that happen, and I feel like we can do that. We will make some cuts. Just as Mr. Key was up here, we're going to kind of hold court with everybody that has a wish list in their handout, because it's like, buying a pizza for a bunch of kids. It's only so many slices to that pizza. So we're going to try to make sure. Top priorities, we're going to get our priorities in order, and education is the number one top priority in this county. Should be. I will never apologize for spending money to support the school system, fire departments, or our sheriff's department. Those three, sir, really are the anchors of your county. So we got to make sure that they function, they run. So I understand your question. Any other questions, concerns? Questions, gentlemen? All right. Are you all happy to send this to our regular meeting? What is your pleasure?
I'm okay with it, Mr. Chairman.
I need.
Needing a motion.
All right,
I
I'll
need a
make a
motion.
motion that we move this to our regular meeting agenda.
I'll second it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bowman, Mr. Dudley. Met with second. We move this along to our regular meeting. Any discussion from the Finance Committee? If not, gentlemen, please cast your votes. All right, motion passes 4-0. We will get, I guess, Mr. Evans to wordsmith that for our meeting, legal counsel. This time, thank you, Ms. Van Hyde. We appreciate all your hard work. Matters from the committee members. Mr. Bowman, have anything?
I don't have a lot right now. I think it went very well, and I think we're moving along. I hated to see the storm come in and mess us up on our standalone finance, but I think we've covered a lot of ground, so it's good. And I thank the finance folks for pulling this thing together. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dudley?
I'm good. Thank you,
You're
Mr.
good.
Chairman.
Mr. Height?
I'm good.
You're good. All right. That being the case, this meeting stands adjourned.